This is Learn from Others, where we interview a cross-section of successful individuals so you can learn from their experiences, achievements, and even their mistakes. We ask 4 questions that will educate and inspire. Greg Stanley will be your guide as we join our guest on a journey from adolescent daydreaming to success in today's world. Join us on this adventure as we learn from others together.
Well, welcome to Learn from Others, where we help others succeed by sharing success. I'm very excited to introduce our special guest, Celine Schillinger. Celine, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How about you?
I'm doing great. Well, thank you so much for taking us on your career journey today. But before we find out what you're doing today, if you would, please tell us, what did you want to be when you grew up?
Many different things. I guess I was influenced by my parents, who were both teachers. So at some point I wanted to be a teacher, and then I discovered poetry. So I decided to become a poet writer, like a poet, a poem writer. And then I probably went through other stuff until I realized that the realm of careers was much larger than what I could envision, beside the very classical functions you interact with as a kid. You realize that maybe there's something bigger than that, actually. And so I stopped projecting myself onto specific functions, but I had a vision in mind whereby I would hopefully, serve my country or something like that. I grew up in France, and I was attracted by the high administration, civil servants. And I felt that was both prestigious, and it was a place of excellence, and they were like the best schools. And so I thought at some point, why don't I do that and try to enter this world and maybe, become a diplomat or something. I was interested in political science and all that stuff. And then going through the Institute of Political Science, I realized that, well, it is super interesting, but the pace I need I need something that goes faster than the administration, and I felt maybe the business world would offer me more exciting opportunities with respect to the speed I need and I want and I'm looking for. And that's how I eventually decided to go find work into the private sector. And I joined the private sector through communications, and then realized that communications was not really what I wanted. So you see, it took me a series of adjustments, really, over many years, in fact. And even after I moved from communications to business operations is what kept me busy for several decades now. But I have still evolved from there too. So it's been a continual evolution, I would say. There hasn't been like one point where I decided, that's what I want to do, and I'm going to stop there and do this for the rest of my life.
Right. Yeah, and it's very interesting that both your parents were teachers, because they're obviously giving back all the time to kids and the next generation and feeding into them. So I bet part of that is what that came from. Those are quite lofty goals for such a young kid.
And this special thing about it is that they were both art teachers.
Oh, okay.
So both had the same job, and both were highly passionate about opening up minds and creating space for creativity and seeing things differently, from artists' perspectives. So I've been to a lot of museums, exhibitions, and sometimes I felt it was boring as a kid, and I didn't want to go to all those concerts and painting shows. But then afterwards, I realized that it has made me, it has given me a different perspective on the world, really, as compared to people who have gone through very rational, very classical kind of studies. I think it has given me different perspectives, and I often see in my work that I'm bringing things that are different.
Mm-hmm.
especially when I'm in an engineer's world or in a world where people are very like science driven, etc. Having an external, a different perspective, and it would be the same if you brought a scientist into an artist world, I
Right.
suppose.
Yeah.
So it's the mix of perspectives that creates very, very interesting insights and innovations.
Well, now I totally get your splash of paint logo that
Yeah.
is on your banner and everything. That's brilliant. I see where that comes from. I see what that means. I see how that works.
Exactly. You found it. And that sometimes talk about corporate artistry,
Yeah.
being able to bring, yeah, artist perspectives or challenging the status quo and the way we do things, because that's what artists have been doing
Mm-hmm.
for centuries, right? It's inventing new ways of doing things, of seeing things, of representing things.
Well, let's go back to when you were a little kid. What was your first job that you ever had?
My first job was a babysitter.
Okay.
I think it's like pretty classical.
Mm-hmm.
But then when I was 18 or so, 19, and I moved to Paris and had to finish my studies and had to find money to complement, to pay for some cost over there. It was very costly. So I worked as a hostess for, like, it was a part-time job, of course. So I used to go to events and, like, be like, take care of the audience, like coats and or
Right. Yep.
whatever. But I did some really fun stuff, like selling orange juice in a supermarket, and I would
Mm-hmm.
always remember that day I took it as a game, it was fun. And at the same time, it was fun because it was just one day. And I realized that people who have to go work for a low-paid job every day, it's not that funny.
Mm-hmm.
And that increased further my motivation to study more and excel. And because I saw from that day and all those days I did in that kind of jobs that it wasn't I mean, some people are happy and it's great, but it is also very hard
Mm-hmm.
to work in some type of jobs like that in supermarkets all day long, and being sort of harassed by customers sometimes,
Right.
and so I felt I needed to like do something where um, I would be more in control of what I do, and
Right.
I would have more freedom over my agenda, the way I work and the way I organize myself.
Okay. Well, that's a great lead in to. Can you
Mhm.
tell us what do you do today? And if you would walk us through how you got there, because I looked at your resume and you've been globe hopping for a number of years now in different
Mhm.
roles. So if you could
Yes.
just kind of tell us what you do today and then kind of how you got there.
Right. So my work today it's a very new type of new work, because I started just 3 months ago. I set up my company for the first time in my life. I have been an employee for 27 years. I worked in different companies around the world. And 3 months ago, I quit my last employer after 17 years. I decided to become an entrepreneur and create my own company. So it's a very exciting new period of my life that is starting. I'm discovering a lot of things. I'm learning new skills. It's amazing. So my company is focused on, so it's a single person company, obviously. It's still very new, but it's focusing on engagement leadership.
Mm-hmm.
What is it? Engagement means the active mobilization of people, of other people. Like, if you want to achieve something as a business, as an organization, you need other people to believe in the thing you're trying to achieve, and you need them to come and act and help you. And and that can be employees, so people working in the organization, or that can be customers, people that
Mm-hmm.
you want to sell your products to or your services. And really, nowadays, engagement is a key to success in every field, I would say. Even in education, teachers need to be able to engage their students, for example. You can't just force feed
Right.
students with knowledge. Okay, you need to have them actively engaged and mobilized. So that's what I do. I help organizations mobilize their stakeholders, and in order to do that, I feel that organizations need to evolve the way they make decisions. They cannot have, one single person say, or a little group of persons saying, this is the decision and this is how we're going to do things, and
Right.
everybody else execute. Maybe it worked in the past, but it really doesn't work anymore now. Customers want something else. Employees want something else. They want to be involved. They want to participate. They want to be co-creators in a way. And it's hard because companies don't really know how to do. How do we organize large groups of people? How do we make decisions with a big number of people? How do we use social networks? How do we avoid chaos and yet involve many people? And my expertise is here. I help companies do that. Now, how did I reach this point? It's an interesting story.
I'm fascinated by it, by the way.
So as I finished political science, my studies and political science and communications, and I entered the world of business, I actually moved to Vietnam. So I went from France to Vietnam, almost like the other side of the planet, to look for a job. Because I was really, really interested in Asia. I was passionate about Asian literature, and I was really intrigued and wanted to.
Okay, can I interrupt you for a second? How'd you become passionate in Asian literature in France?
There's a very simple answer to that. I had friends in high school who were karate fans.
Oh, okay.
So they started karate and they were fans, and because of that, they started to read Japanese literature, Mishima, and that led them to other, and they told me with passion, they spoke with passion about those books. So I started to read that, and that's how I got into that. From Japan, I expanded to Chinese literature and whatever other literature in the area. Loved it. And the culture that was expressed in those novels was so different from the one I knew. I felt it extremely appealing, and really, it was a mysterious world that I started to discover through reading through those books. And so I decided to go there, found a job in Vietnam. I actually moved to Vietnam, settled in a Vietnamese family that I got in contact with through friends, started to learn the language, of course, because otherwise it would have been very difficult. And it's funny, I lived in a house occupied by a family of 13 people, 3 generations under the same roof. It's something that you don't see anymore in our Western countries, right? It's a very different type of life, but very fascinating, a very, very interesting cultural journey. And I stayed 4 years in Vietnam, and of course found a job and worked in business. I did business there. And then after 4 years in Vietnam, I moved back to France, took a job in another company where I was a salesperson for Asia, over the Asian region. So I went back and forth very often to Taiwan and Singapore and Thailand, and then found another job in another company, in the same company, in another branch in China. And there I was the general manager of radio stations.
Really?
I know, it's a pretty
now,
diverse.
Was your previous positions in the communication field, or were they in another field?
No, it was in another field. It was in business. Nothing related to that. The only common point was Asia. Mm-hmm. And I remember being interviewed by the head of the radio business for this position in China, and he said to me, so I was like 27 or something, 28, And he said to me, have you already managed people? And I said, sure. It was a little lie. I
Maybe
hadn't
not
really,
officially, but
yeah, I had like sort of managed a little team in Vietnam, but not exactly what you call management, I would say. And then he said, well, the team in China is 80 people strong. Do you think you'll be able to lead this team? And I felt like, oh my God, I felt like it was a shock, but I tried not to show because I was excited by the challenge. So I said, sure,
piece of cake.
of course. And then as soon as the interview was finished, I ran to the bookstore and bought like 3 books about management and tried to understand how to do that.
Well, you stepped up to the challenge.
I
That's awesome.
did. I did. It was too great of an opportunity to miss it. Going to China, having such a role, being trusted to get to occupy, to have this role, it was a big honor, and yet certainly a challenge and an opportunity to learn new things. So I did take the challenge, loved it, stayed a couple of years there, and then came back to France and took another position at a pharma company, also in charge of international operations, but based in France. And then I did 10 years in commercial operations until one day when something happened. So this day, it was December 2010, I decided to write a letter to the CEO of the company because I felt, after being 10 years in this company and liking it very much, but I felt there was something the company was not doing very well. And that something was diversity. There was not a lot of diverse profiles in the company at higher levels. People who take decisions, they were sort of all the same, coming from the same background, the same studies, the same geography, etc. So they were clones, sort of, right?
Yep.
And I felt in this world of where everything is relational, where more and more what counts is not just the content or the quality of your product or the quality of your services, but it's the relation that you're able to create with your customers or stakeholders. This relation is harder to create when your executive team is only made of a tiny fraction, is only representative of a tiny fraction of the world, right? And so I decided to at least try something and write to this CEO about my idea in a very respectful way and constructive way. And I hoped that could, I don't know, maybe at least influence him maybe a little bit. And in fact, it did not really influence him, but
Right.
I was naive a little bit. But, naivety makes you do things that can have a great impact. And in this case, it did have a great impact because this letter triggered a movement in the company.
Wow.
It was not what I had expected. I was really taken by surprise, but I welcomed it again as a challenge and an opportunity to learn and to make an impact, because when you're not alone, but you're like several people are joining you, and then after this movement is growing and growing, and you realize that it's not just 10, 20, 50, it's 2,000, 3,000 people, and it goes across many countries, then you feel stronger, you feel empowered, and you feel that, hey, maybe we can actually together, even though we have no mandate, we have no budget, we have no roadmap. Why don't we create something together as a movement, And that's really what happened. And it was beautiful.
How did that start? How did that manifest itself?
So
in
it
the company?
manifested in a community that started to take shape on the social network. People starting to meet,
Mm.
organizing lunch and learn events, inviting people from their own personal networks to come and talk to us about what was happening in their companies, how they were
Wow.
doing, that kind of things. It was really making connections with people across hierarchies, across departments, and it was really miraculous to see this happening in an organization that had been so far very traditional and very siloed and hierarchical, and seeing
Do you
this.
still have a copy of the letter?
I do, yes, I do,
Did
absolutely.
you ever talk to the CEO
Oh
about it?
yes, of course, because then after a few months, this movement became like so visible and so big that we were invited by the
Oh,
CEO
wow.
to actually provide ideas and interact with the executive committee. And we hosted a brainstorming session. We crowdsourced
Wow.
proposals from the network. It became a real actor, you see, and this
Mm-hmm.
was really new. There was before that there was no space for a networked grassroots kind of actor. It was very new, and from there, this is what really triggered
Yeah.
a big change in my career. Is because I saw the potential not just for social topics but also for business topics. I saw the potential of this way of working, being able
Mm-hmm.
to bring collectives together and creating value out of the diversity of perspectives,
Mm.
being able to um, yeah, create, or not create really, but express or have the collective uh, gather around a common purpose. What is
Mm.
the thing, this purpose that is so strong and so appealing and interesting, and that many people will come together and join forces and spend time and energy into making an impact and something that's
Right.
sustainable, um, and using social media to do that, to connect at scale, but also other types of things that bring people together. So for me, it was really an aha moment when I realized that,
Mm-hmm.
yes, this is where I could combine my passion for engagement, my different perspective on the way we do
Mm-hmm.
business, my interest for social and digital, um, and all those things, and my sense of purpose. So it was wonderful. And then from there, I created a job, a position that did not
Mm-hmm.
exist before in the company, that was called stakeholder engagement. And
Mm.
that was that supported the launch of a new product by creating a community of intent,
Mm.
because I really think this is the key to success now, is this community of intent, rather than an audience, a passive audience of
Mm-hmm.
consumers, or,
Yep.
or employees who receive and do not say anything. This is gone. This time is gone, right?
Mm-hmm.
And from there, I created another. So this one was also very successful, and I created another position 4 years ago, which led me to the US. I started to live in Boston at that time, and that position was called Stakeholder Innovation and Engagement for Quality. So it was a very
Mm.
new way to improve the quality, the manufacturing quality
Mm-hmm.
of a manufacturing company by engaging people in a community of intent, in a community of activists, and
Mm-hmm.
not as a traditional group of passive people or passive employees who just um, take and absorb instructions and
Right.
injunctions. This
Right.
didn't work. So yeah, that's what taught me further a lot. I mean, lots of things around engaging people in a very controlled, industrial, regulated setting. And I have seen that even there, it's possible to do things differently, to have what I call sometimes a people-powered performance. Very often we
Mm-hmm.
think about tools and technologies and device and what next, artificial intelligence, but there's also a resource that is already here and that is not leveraged enough. That is our
Mm-hmm.
people, people here already,
Yeah.
you know, and it's
That's a great point,
yeah,
and that's one of the reasons I came up with this podcast, because I think there's an untapped resource in everyone that has a career journey, a career story that can help other folks.
yeah.
So it's kind of funny that we're kind of the same kind of mindset. So
Mm.
that's amazing, and it seems like if you go on your LinkedIn page, you've won all sorts of amazing
Mhm.
awards that you seem to have the social side of it,
Yeah,
the social good
yeah.
side of it. Can you speak to a little bit of how your job that you created engaged with everyone else with it outside of your company, I guess is the best way to
Yes,
put it?
it's exactly that. I realized very early on through the first engagement story that there was no such thing as a strict frontier between internal and external. External and the external perspective actually informs and helps internal to try new things, and it gives value to what we do, and likewise in the other direction, internal innovation can also help others outside. And I believe organizations have a social responsibility too. I mean, not in the
Mm-hmm.
sense of how it's often perceived, as a department and a tick the box
Mm-hmm.
thing. And yeah, we do our share to compensate for all the pollution we create. This is
Right.
this is not
Right.
good. No, I
Yeah.
really believe in the citizenship of companies, of organizations. We are human beings and we are not different people at work and outside of work. It's the same. There's a
Mm-hmm.
continuum here. So being able to share what we do with others, to create communities across businesses, and I also believe that internal competition is really destructive. I think it's really
Mm-hmm.
bad. So what is really fun is to gather, to mobilize people in an external competition instead.
Mm-hmm.
So running for awards has always been a really fun experience because it brings a lot of pride to our people, to workers, especially when they travel for the first time and they receive an award, and for the first time they're on stage and they deliver a speech. It's something that they will never forget in their lives. I remember one of my colleagues who rehearsed his speech on his karaoke machine in his living room, and for the first time he was on stage, and he was the best speaker of all, among very seasoned professional. He was a frontline worker, and again for the first time on the stage, and he was the one who made the most emotional, the most compelling speech the whole day. It was a life-changing moment for him, and for me it made me so proud and so convinced that this is what I needed to keep doing.
Could you speak briefly? I know you were awarded an award that a knighthood or
Yes.
something like that. I know I'm getting that wrong, and I
No,
know
no, it's great.
like Elton John when he was knighted by the Queen, it's now Sir Elton. Am I supposed to call you Madame? I don't know how that works exactly, but could you talk to that just a little bit?
Yeah, it's in France, and you don't change names as you do in the
Okay, good.
UK. But yes, I was very honored to receive this knighthood from the French government. It was last year, in recognition for my efforts for diversity in the workplace. So
Mm,
not only the award was really wonderful and very touching, but the reason why it was given
mm-hmm.
is really overwhelming for me, because it's where everything started. I mean, everything. I started my professional journey before, but I feel that my deeper purpose has been matched. Has been like I've been completely like fulfilled professionally and personally altogether since that time.
Mm,
Since that moment where I took a step, um, I took action. You know,
mm-hmm.
I stepped up and raised my voice. And before that, I did not realize, I think it took me a long time to realize that the system was not optimal,
Mm-hmm.
and that I could play a little role, little or big, depends on actually luck and the way you do things. But it took me, quite a while to move from realizing the system was not optimal, and then realizing that there's other ways than protest or resignation or like giving up. There's another way.
Mm-hmm.
And this other way is constructive and collective.
That's amazing, because I think back to your letter to the CEO. That was like the spark that
Mm-hmm.
ignited the second phase of your career and this whole new world you're exploring and being beneficial to others. Have you ever thought what would have happened if you never heard anything back?
Yes.
Do you think you would have stepped up 6 months later, or in another way, or at another company or something like that?
I don't know. I'm often wondering about that. I have seen so many people becoming disgruntled and sort of going to work every day but not liking it really,
Mm-hmm.
and then still going to work but keeping all their energy for other things. And
Right.
why not? Their families may benefit from that, or their social life, or their whatever association, but then there's so much loss at work in terms
Mm-hmm.
of productivity, of course, but also self-esteem and innovation and creativity, and maybe I would have become like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's not excluded at all. And it's something that I was very afraid of, because I felt I'm too young to sort of retire in my
Right.
mind already. I'm convinced I have a value. I have more value than what I bring now. I don't know how, but then by taking this step, I sort of started shaping my future rather than
Mm.
waiting for opportunities. I think prior to that, this is really what happened. I was hopeful that I would be picked, I would be seen and valued
Right.
and recognized and called for a great job. And sometimes it happened, sometimes it didn't happen. But it was not
Mm-hmm.
in my hands. It did not depend on me.
Right.
And if you're lucky, and some people have more luck than others. Like
Mm-hmm.
we all know how biased organizations and recruiters are. If you're not that lucky, if you're not fitting in the right mold,
Mm-hmm.
then you need to do something else. I mean, everybody needs to do something else, but really take control of your future rather than waiting to be picked. And I'm saying this especially to young women, because very
Mm-hmm.
often it's a temptation. We have to think, oh, if I do a great work, of course I will be seen and
Mm-hmm.
recognized. But hey, it doesn't always happen.
Yeah, for sure. Well, before we move on to our next question, let's take a moment to hear from our sponsors.
Do you enjoy your job and find it fulfilling? Or do you spend more time wondering what if instead of what's next? If so, contact Career Spa. Career Spa has extensive programs and curriculum and understands the challenges faced by individuals in transition. They can teach these success practices to be mastered for an effective job search. Answer that what if question by contacting Career Spa and asking their experts, what's next? Contact Career Spa at careerspa.net. Talent acquisition is key to building a successful organization. Talent Connections is a professional services firm that specializes in recruiting, including executive search, contract recruiting, talent acquisition consulting, and recruitment process outsourcing. Whether you are an individual or a Fortune 100 company, Talent Connections can connect you with success. Contact them at talentconnections.net.
Welcome back. As a reminder, you can check out all previous episodes at learnfromothers.org. If you're an educator or a student, you can search for podcasts by career clusters, and additional resources are under the resource tab. We learned what you wanted to be, what you grew up, and what you do today. So if you could do it all over again, would you do anything differently?
It's a great question. I think I would, and it's an advice trying to give to my kids right now. I would try to not define myself too early and be set in certain identities. For example, very early on, I decided, sort of unconsciously or influenced by social biases, I decided that I was not good at math. Who says
Right.
that? I'm not. I'm just like, I could have been good at math, but there's some way, a construction I did about myself, and the same thing happened with sports. I decided that I was not good at sports.
Mm.
And because of this sort of unconscious decision, I did not do sports. And
Right.
and of course it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, that happened. And only when I was 30 years old did I discover rowing.
Oh,
And
okay.
rowing became a passion, and I discovered that I was actually not bad at all at it, and I had endurance. Like I was like good at like sustaining efforts, and it was a revelation for me. I felt, oh my God, maybe I could have discovered that earlier instead of refusing to do sports for 20 years. I was actually not bad. It was just
Right.
a construction about myself. So deciding that, it's setting your identity, and I'm really cautious when I see that in young kids, when I see that happening early, saying, oh, I'm not good at that, or I'm not doing, this is not true.
Right.
You're good. You can be good at everything if you want. You take the time to understand, you get help, whatever, but don't set yourself in a too narrow set of identities. Okay, your capacities are broader than what you believe, probably.
Right.
Right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Don't limit yourself,
No,
especially if,
exactly,
yeah, that's great. That's
exactly.
great.
Yeah.
Well, let's make the assumption that someone wants to do what you do. Now, I don't know how you're going to figure this one out, but what advice would you give them? And is there a typical career path? So this would typically be for a defined
Mm,
kind of role.
mm.
Yours is a little bit different. So how would you answer that question?
So I have an idea about that. I would say go try to interact with as many different people as you can. Don't
Hmm.
stay in a single community. Because
Mm.
I think what led me there was the result of all those experiences, going to Vietnam, working in China, having those artistic influences. So being able to navigate in different environments, in different worlds, being um, being not afraid of the
Hmm.
unknown and the diversity is really what led me there in the end, right? And any cultural experience, like going abroad, and you don't have to go very far. You can go just the other side of the border, or
Right.
but being able to, or going to mingling with other communities, trying to absorb some of the complexity of the world, so that the complexity doesn't become a barrier or an enemy, something to be afraid of, but a friend, you know.
Right. Right.
That's what I would recommend. Develop your relational skills, being able to
Mm.
create relations across cultures, across social differences, cultural differences, etc. I think this is probably the key, and then it will lead you anywhere.
That's great advice. And I know that the first time I went overseas was actually to Paris, and that's my favorite city in the whole wide world. I just love Paris. But the first time I went there, it was just such an eye opener from a social,
Mm,
cultural perspective. And then since I've traveled elsewhere, it really does help you expand your vision of what the world is really like versus your own little, you've got your little guardrails on where you don't quite see everything like you should. So,
yeah, yeah. I
yeah.
remember one anecdote, for example, that really that was an eye opener for me, was in learning the language in Vietnam, to realize that there's no word to say I. There's like
Mm.
I and you. There's
Hmm.
not a single word. There are many words. And those many words the one you use depends on the relationship you have with the other person, whether the other person is older, younger, same age, from your family, not from your family, whatever. There's like plenty of different subtle differences. But the I and you is a relational I and you.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like amazing to realize when I understood that there was a completely different logic possible. It was not better, it was not worse, it was just something radically different that was possible. And for me it was like really really amazing, because it was then it was thought-provoking in relation to identity. You know, what's my identity? Is there like who am I in a society like that? You know, am I always like the sister of, the daughter of, or is there an I? And what's the difference with our societies? And so that kind of little micro experiences are really, really interesting.
That would be, am I the I that's a personal relationship versus the I that's maybe not as personal or more professional, that type of idea?
Yes, and it's even more complex than that. There's the I sister is different than an I cousin is different than an I. So it's a very subtle and complex depiction of social relationships in the simple I and you concept.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Wow, that's great. Do you have any current projects you're working on that you would like to share? Because I know you're awful busy speaking, traveling, consulting. Anything coming up you'd like to share?
Yes, I have currently a project that's dear to my heart. I am about to meet people working for for a humanitarian association called Habitat et Humanisme. They provide shelter for people who have no home, refugees, like families and so on. And I suggested that I help them with a pro bono series of action learning workshops and so on, so that to help them solve problems. And this is going to happen at the beginning of next year, and I'm really, really looking forward to do that.
Well, like most journeys, success largely depends on reliable transportation. And we don't know each other, but I told you earlier that I'm a big car person. So if you would, could you tell us, what was your first car?
So I would say a little bit as a joke, but my first car was in Vietnam, a cyclo. You know where?
Okay, so I have no idea what that is.
It's where, you know, you're sitting in a seat, and there's this person like cycling, you know,
right.
behind you.
That's a first. That is a first.
But that was a joke. My first, actually, it was really convenient at the time, and I think since then it has been forbidden downtown because cities in Vietnam have become so crowded, and this doesn't go fast enough. But my first car was a Renault. Of course, I was in France.
Yep.
Renault Super 5, means Super 5.
Okay. Okay. I'm going to assume that was a cool car. Am I right?
Yeah. I don't know if you would call that a cool car now. I think my 13-year-old kid would burst laughing seeing it.
Oh, okay. Anything in French sounds cool.
Yes.
Okay. Well, do you have a dream car?
I do. A convertible Mustang.
Get out of here.
I'm sorry. I just love this car.
A new one? Is it a new one or an old
one?
one?
No, it's an old one. I just love the shape and I don't have it. I dream about it. But
wow. Well, I just sold my 66 Mustang convertible.
No way. Really?
Like 3 months ago. I'll send you a picture of it.
Oh, wow. Lucky you.
Yeah, there's actually a video on Petrolicious where they filmed me driving it. I'll send it to you.
I love
Well,
those cars. What did you sell it?
yeah,
What did you get instead?
I got my first, it's a 99 Porsche 911.
Ooh, love
An
that.
older one.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah, but it's the opposite of a Mustang, basically. It literally is like the opposite. So that's been a lot of fun. Well, some companies have a company car. So if I had all the money in the world, I would love to buy you a cool company car based on your job. And I tend to do too much research on this type of stuff. But yours was a little bit easier because you are an out-of-the-box thinker, right? You try to help others succeed. I love the fact that you have the artistic side. It totally aligns with the car I picked. So I had to pick a French car. I just had to. Because the most iconic one and the most beautiful cars and innovative cars ever made was the Citroën DS convertible.
Yes.
So that's the one I picked for you. It was a
yes.
1963. And what's amazing about this car is the first to have like all hydraulics. It actually won the award for one of the most beautiful cars ever. Are you familiar with that car? I'm assuming you are.
I am. I heard it makes you seasick. Seasick.
It might make you seasick. Yeah, that could possibly be.
But it's a
But
beautiful car. Yes, I reckon. Thank you for the choice. Very nice.
yeah. So I picked the convertible one for you. So I'll send you some pictures as well.
Looking to it.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for taking us on your journey. What's the best way our listeners can learn more about you and your company?
Thank you for asking. I have a blog on my website that is called weneedsocial.com, and you can also go there through engagementleadership.com. So I try to post videos and articles, and of course I am more than happy if anyone connects and wants to exchange thoughts with me. I absolutely value that, so welcome.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you, Celine, so much for taking us on your career journey today.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you for listening to Learn from Others, where we help others succeed by sharing success. Where will our next adventure take us? Subscribe to find out. If you know of someone who has a cool career story or occupation, contact Greg through Instagram at Greg Stanley LFO. That's GregStanley LFO. And we will see you soon as we learn from others together.